Ma'am, sir, credentials out. The private's voice cracked like a snapped pencil. Too high for the uniform he wore, too sharp for the quiet of the hour. The checkpoint on the American base was a rectangle of sodium light and painted lines. Beyond it, the runway's edge lights stitched a dotted sentence toward the horizon. Wind pulled gently at the flag, and the smell was a mix of hot asphalt and cold metal. Cars rolled, badges flashed, hands waved through. Then a figure reached the head of the line and broke the rhythm without meaning to. An old man. Jacket that had lived through more winters than he'd care to count. Hands like folded maps. He moved the way some people read, slow, exact, every step an intention. No ribbons on his lapel. No unit cap. Just a small red lighter in the notch of his right coat pocket, its enamel gone dull in places, its corners rubbed to a soft shine. Sir, this lane's for invited guests only, the private said, chin lifting half an inch. Ceremonies restricted. VIPs, families. You'll need to turn around. The old man nodded, not quite to the private, not quite to himself. I'm here for the ceremony, he said. His voice wasn't gravel. It was the hush of a library aisle. I came to stand at the back. You got a pass? The private pressed. A second guard, broader, more relaxed, stood at the shadow edge of the floodlight and said nothing. The old man touched his breast pocket, then stopped. His fingers settled instead on the red lighter. He took it out as if it were breakable, set it on his palm. In the light it looked like a toy, the kind you'd win at a fair if you rang the bell, a rectangle of red with a hinge that knew better days. The private snorted. Seriously? Sir, we're not lighting cigarettes on post. It's not for that, the old man said. What is it then? The private asked, the smile already forming, the one that belongs to the very young when they think they've found permission to laugh. The old man watched the lighter, not the boy. It remembers, he said. Right, the private said. A memory lighter. He reached forward, the way you tap a countertop to make a point, and the back of his knuckle touched the enamel. The asphalt under them slipped away. The light of the flood lamps receded. A jungle night rose up, wet air, the iron taste of blood and battery acid. The old man blinked and saw the old ink in his mind, a map that had gotten rained on until the streams and contour lines bled into each other, and a small hand-drawn star in the margin. LZ switchback if we live that long? 40 names in pencil. 40. He heard again the stale click of a dead radio. He saw, in the split-second light of a mortar fuse, the faces of men looking toward him and away from him and up at nothing, because looking at anything else was too much to ask. Then the flood lamps came back. The night moved away. A gust tugged at the flag. The private cleared his throat and put his hand behind his back, as if he hadn't done anything at all. Sir, he said, voice lower now, you can't be here. Ceremony's starting at 1900 on the flight line. It's closed. Let me stand where the lights don't reach, the old man said. That's all I'm asking. The bigger guard stepped one pace closer. His name tape read Parker. His eyes had the patient look of someone who knows how fast a day can turn. Private, Parker said, without looking away from the old man. Call it in. The private hesitated, then keyed his shoulder mic. Checkpoint Charlie to Ops, he said. We've got an elderly civilian requesting access to the memorial. No pass. He listened, nodded, frowned. Copy. Stand by. While the private stood by, the old man balanced the lighter on his palm. It was red because a man had painted it in a hurry, brushing enamel made for farm equipment onto cheap metal. The paint was too thick in the hinge, and the hinge had learned to forgive it. What's with the color? The private asked, more curious than combative now. Trying to look cool. It isn't cool, the old man said. It's warm. That was the point. A convoy of vans eased through the checkpoint, families, camera bags, folded flags in triangular cases. A little boy in the second row pressed his palm to the glass when he saw the old man and waved the way little boys do, elbow first. The old man didn't wave back. He closed his fingers over the lighter, as if someone might reach out of the moving dark and take it from him. Ops came back over the private's shoulder. The private listened, eyes flicking once to the old man's face in that awkward way you look at people when you're listening to someone else talk about them. "Roger," he said into the mic. "Understood." He turned, suddenly all brass and angles again. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step to the side while we—" "Private," Parker said softly. "Why don't you let me handle it?" The private set his jaw, the way you do when you're too young to know you're being protected. He nodded, stepped back, and tried to look like he wasn't. Parker lifted his chin toward the red lighter. "Where'd you get it?" The old man looked down the spine of the base toward where the runway disappeared into the prairie. "A place that isn't on the map anymore," he said. "Night went wrong. Radios drowned. The stars were all cloud and jungle breath. We had 40 men, 7 of them walking wounded, and the rest, walking in a circle, because fear is a circle." "How'd a lighter stop a circle?" Parker asked, not unkindly. "By making a line," the old man said. The private rolled his eyes very slightly, but only in his head. "Explain it to me like I'm slow," Parker said, hands open. It wasn't a trap. He was asking for a bridge. The old man nodded. His thumb brushed the hinge, but he didn't open it. "We had one red tarp, a signal panel. A clipped helicopter rotor was our clock. We couldn't use white light. Couldn't throw a flare, it would throw us back. But the tarp was soaked and the night was worse." "So you lit it," Parker said. The old man shook his head. "We walked a line with it. I held this lighter under a lens we taped with a soldier's red lens from a broken flashlight. Too dim to travel far, bright enough to travel just far enough. It was a breadcrumb that thought it was a star. We moved in file, 40 shadows, and the lighter moved at the speed of our fear." "Enemy didn't see it?" Parker asked. "They saw what we wanted them to see," the old man said. "Heat where we weren't. Noise where we hadn't been. We parted the jungle like a curtain. The lighter lit the hands that carried the wounded. It lit the eyes that wanted to close." The private made a sound like a cough that was actually a laugh. "Okay," he said. "So a pocket lighter saved 40 operators?" "Sure." Parker didn't glance at him. "Who was your CO?" he asked the old man. "Names are heavy," the old man said. He didn't say it like a line meant to impress. He said it like something you put down on a table when people have been talking for too long. From the far end of the flight line came the braided noise of people arranging themselves into rows. The sun slid lower than that. The floodlights felt colder, even as they hummed warmer. Somewhere a bugle tested a note, a half-breath, a maybe. Parker's radio hissed to life. He listened, nodded once, turned to the old man. "Sir, they're going to let you stand at the back. There's a rope line along the hangar door. You can be inside it, but toward the wall." "Thank you," the old man said. No more and no less. The private moved aside stiffly to let him pass. As the old man stepped into the rectangle of fluorescent light that marked the checkpoint, the private's eye caught the lighter again. "Hey," he said, without meaning to be cruel, and yet being exactly that. "Why keep a toy like that? You know they make better ones." The old man stopped. Turned. The lighter sat in his palm like a word on the tip of a tongue. "Because this one remembers," he said again. Then he stepped beyond the tape and into the base, as if he had never left it. The hangar had been dressed for memory. A bank of folding chairs faced the open doors. Beyond the doors, the runway held still like a held breath. At the front, a table and 3 framed photographs. A folded flag waited in a glass case, reflections moving slowly over it like a lake sky. People filled the seats in 2s and 3s, then 4s. Uniforms were pressed into straight geometry. Civilians wore their best dark clothes. A chaplain moved lips you couldn't hear. The old man found the back and kept going until the wall kissed his shoulder blades. He breathed in the angle between concrete block and painted steel, and the smell was the smell of every hangar in peacetime, which is to say, oils and patience. The private ended up near him because there was nowhere else to be. Parker took a post along the rope line, eyes on traffic, ears on everything. The chaplain began. He used words that had been used before and would be used again, because grief likes familiar roads. The base commander followed. He spoke like a man who has saluted more coffins than birthdays. Families wept in quiet, organized ways. The old man kept his hands in front of him, one cupped over the other, the way people pray when they have forgotten how. Halfway through, the hangar lights flickered. No one gasped. It was the kind of flicker you see at the very end of a bulb's life, a long blink full of indecision. The commander paused, glanced up, let the moment pass. The lights held. Then, at the reading of the names, the building sighed. The fluorescence dropped with a hum that ended in a question. The PA coughed and retreated. The only light came from the hangar door, and even that was a slow gray. People do strange things in the dark. Some laugh. Some hold on to whatever is nearest. Some remember. In the second row, a child began to cry, a soft mechanical sound like a wind-up toy reaching the end of its spring. The chaplain put a hand on the binder where his notes slept and waited for electricity to find them again. Parker's radio snapped and failed in the same instant. He looked toward Ops and saw, across the sea of heads, someone draw two hands up in the universal sign for "We're working on it." At the back, the old man opened his hand. The red lighter sat there as if it had never belonged anywhere else. His thumb found the hinge. The flip of it was small and specific. The wheel turned, flint met steel, and the wick caught as if the night had consented. A red mouth opened in the dark. Not white. Not blue. A small disciplined ember with a blush to it, like the coil inside a field stove, like caution, like resolve. It wasn't bright. It wasn't meant to be. That was the point. The old man didn't lift it high. He held it waist high, palm cupped, and took 2 steps along the wall, then 3, then 4, moving parallel to the seated rows the way a man might walk a shoreline to learn where it ends. The flame touched the face of the wall, then withdrew. It kissed the air and made a line where there had been none. Someone in the front row turned and noticed and didn't know, for a brief second, whether to be afraid. Then they saw the old man's face, and the fear scattered like a flock of starlings deciding all at once to change direction. Parker didn't tell him to stop. He didn't reach for him. He watched the line become a quiet right angle, wall, floor, man, light, and felt something in his chest make room for it. Without a mic, without amplification, the chaplain read the next name from memory. The flame traveled 10 feet and stopped, not to be dramatic, not to be seen, but because old men walking in the dark stop when they feel it's time. At the end of the row, the old man closed the lighter. The sound of it was tiny and somehow perfectly shaped to the space. In the same second, the fluorescents woke with a collective irritation, popping themselves back into being. The PA cleared its throat. The commander blinked once and remembered how to be looked at. Nobody cheered. Nobody said that was amazing. People who have lost things don't clap for small lights. They accept them. They put them in their pocket and touch them when the room goes quiet for no reason. The names finished. The bugle played. It did not crack. It went straight through the hangar and took a piece of everyone with it. When it was over, people stood too quickly and then slowed down. The old man found himself part of a river moving gently toward the doors, toward the night that wasn't quite night anymore. Parker met him there. "Sir," he said. He didn't look at the lighter. "You're welcome to stop by the museum annex if you'd like. It's open late tonight." The old man shook his head. "I've seen the things that belong there," he said. "This doesn't." Parker nodded. He had expected the answer without knowing he had. He reached into his breast pocket, took out a folded index card, and a pen that had chewed marks where teeth had tried to make time pass. "Can I?" he began, then changed his mind about what to ask for. "Would you write what you just did on here?" The old man smiled with one side of his face. "I didn't do anything." "Exactly," Parker said. "Write that." The old man wrote 4 words, slow as a man tying his shoes so he won't have to untie them too soon. He handed the card back. "We made a line." Thank you, Parker said. He slipped the card into his pocket without looking at it, the way you pocket a photo someone trusts you with. Private, Parker said over his shoulder. The young guard had wandered close, as if by accident. Walk the gentleman to the gate. I can manage, the old man said. I know, Parker replied. Let him practice. The private swallowed. For a second he was 17 and at a school desk, and then he was 19 and at a checkpoint again, and both were true and neither was enough. He stepped beside the old man. They walked in a straight line that could have bent if it wanted to. The base at night is a different country, fewer voices, more echoes, the same rules. After 20 silent paces, the private said, I shouldn't have called it a toy. The old man tipped his head in the boy's direction. You called it what it looked like, he said. Then you looked longer. They reached the rectangle of light that meant out. The private stopped. He reached for something he didn't have, authority, apology, a better sentence, and found, to his surprise, both the right and the wrong thing at once. Can I see it? He asked. The old man put the lighter on the boy's palm. It was heavier than it looked. Heat had made the metal mean. The red enamel up close was a landscape, scrapes like dry riverbeds, smooth places like river stones. On the bottom, where only hands would ever see it, someone years ago had scratched 40 tiny marks. Not names. Not letters. Just the number 1 carved 40 times around the perimeter, each one spaced by the width of a thumb. What are these? The private asked. Notches, the old man said. The private's throat clicked. He held the lighter out, two-handed, as if it might drop through the earth if he didn't. This should be in a case, he said. It is, the old man replied. He tapped his chest. It's just not made of glass. A wind came across the open flat of the base and lifted the corner of the boy's name tape. He put his hand there to smooth it and realized, as he did, that he was standing at attention without deciding to. The old man noticed and said nothing. Good night, sir, the private said. Good practice, the old man answered. He stepped past the tape, past the signs, into the kind of dark that belongs to parking lots and memories. The private watched him go, and then didn't. He turned back toward the hangar. The red lighter's weight remained for a full breath in his empty hand. In the museum annex, 3 nights later, an intern making labels for a temporary display paused over a small card that didn't belong to any exhibit. 4 words in a thin hand, we made a line. No donor attached. No accession number. She stuffed the card to her corkboard with a pushpin the color of rust and didn't think about who wrote it until months later, when a power flicker turned the gallery into a gentle mirror, and she watched her own reflection not be afraid. The red lighter did not go into any case. But a year after the ceremony, at the very back of the base chapel where candles are not lit because regulations have feelings too, there was a shelf with a small empty space the size of a palm. Sometimes during evening services, when a sentence stalled or a memory tripped, the chaplain's eyes would go to that space and back again, as if checking whether a light was on where no light could be. Once, on a night when the sky had the color of old bruise, Parker found the private there, staring at the shelf. What are you doing? Parker asked. Nothing, the private said. Exactly, Parker replied. He put a folded index card next to the empty place and left it there. 4 words in a thin hand. When the young man took watch at the checkpoint after that, he found his tone had lost its sharp corners. He still asked for credentials. He still followed the list. But he began to look a half-second longer at the person holding the badge, as if a line might be hiding somewhere in the dark, waiting to be made. And on those rare nights when the floodlights wavered and the base took a breath it didn't mean to take, he would feel his hand move toward his breast pocket, feel nothing there, and realize that was all right. Some lights aren't for carrying. They're for remembering how.